Coaches and players come and go, the owner too, but fans always stay. Lazio was there before Simone Inzaghi, it will still be there after Simone Inzaghi. This is Lazio Lounge. Alistair McKenzie, let's start. How are you feeling about this? Inzaghi leaving Lazio.
Well, what you've just said is true, but I'm actually starting to feel a bit depressed that it's true, because it would be easier at a moment like this to be able to just walk away. Yeah, a crazy couple of days. I have to say, yeah, just really depressed. It's been it was going to be hard to lose Inzaghi, to say goodbye to Inzaghi, as all our listeners know. We've both been very supportive of him and wanted him to stay, but for it to happen in these circumstances, it makes it even harder. And unfortunately, it's going to be part of his legacy now, and it shouldn't be because of everything else that's happened. But it makes it harder to take than if he'd just said goodbye the normal way.
Yeah, definitely. He found an agreement on Wednesday. It looks like he went away from Formello happy, smiling, sending messages to players and journalists saying that he was staying, he was happy, etc. And then the day afterwards, he made up his mind and decided to not accept the contract. I think there is a big change there, and I think it's all due to the offer from Inter. It's not that he wasn't happy anymore. So I think yeah, he didn't sign the contract, but when you give your word, it should count. So this is the most disappointing thing, right?
It should, but at the same time, a well-organized club doesn't let it get to this point in the first place. There's a big point to be made there. We have been discussing this, we've been worried about this for a year, maybe even more than a year. The fact that his contract was running down this summer. And for it to get to this point, you're asking for trouble. Obviously, nobody expected that Conte to be leaving Inter this soon, especially after the Scudetto. I mean, a year ago, didn't see that coming. But, things like this do happen. Opportunities do come up. The one that I've been most concerned about all this time has been Juventus, not Inter. But when he has an opportunity like that arise, I don't know. He's got the chance to take on the reigning Serie A champions, to have a much better stocked squad than he has at Lazio. And I've seen people make the point as well that, which is what I was worried about, that last summer, he leads them to the Champions League first time in 13 years, and they signed Marici and Faris. I mean, it's not. Maybe he just felt like he's gone as far as he could. I don't like the way he did it, but the decision to join Inter, I think you can understand and you can respect. But it's just like you say, it's the U-turn that is the hardest part.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, if Wednesday he said, "Look, I think I'm done here. I did everything I could. I'm looking for another position," that would be absolutely fine. The other point you made, well, the contract, two people have to sign the contract, right? So I always got the impression that Inzaghi was waiting for something. Last year, Lotito offered the contract. He didn't want to sign it. In February, he had another offer. He didn't want to sign it. So, I always got the impression that he was waiting for a call from somewhere. Unfortunately, the call came a couple of hours before he signed the contract.
Yeah, but be that as it may, I understand what you mean. You can't force the guy to sign a new contract, but at the same time, you can invest in your belief in him, and if Lazio were willing to offer him more than what was it, 2 million, 2.5 million a year, and actually pay him the same amount that the top earners in the squad are being paid, he's clearly already tempted to stay anyway, because he's just agreed to stay. So I don't think we can go down the line where we say Inzaghi always wanted to leave, he's always waiting for another chance, because literally 48 hours ago he was saying he was staying at Lazio. So the option of him staying was clearly always there. He just needed persuaded.
I'm not sure. I think he waited so long because he wanted to see what was happening at Inter Juventus. And in fact, the first time Inter calls him, he changed his mind. So, I'm not 100% convinced that was the plan. I thought he took as much more time he could to wait and see what happened. In fact, something happened. And I repeat, I mean, if on Wednesday, when he had this meeting with Lotito, who would have said, I'm not convinced, I want to wait, I would have respected more. Like that, no, I don't respect you.
So what's your take on Inzaghi now? We've had today two main things happening, I'd say. Graffiti outside the training ground calling him a traitor and a slave to modern football, and a statement from the ultras saying that they respect his decision. Which side are you on?
Definitely the first one. I don't know. I have to admit that in the last 20 years, I don't agree in nothing that the ultras said, and this was just the other.
I'm glad to hear that.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Again, I mean, if you are not convinced, you don't shake hands and say yes, I want to stay. So yeah, for me, and we have to make a point. Inter is a top team, won the Scudetto and so on, but we all know that they will have to sell one or two at least key players. So you're going probably in the wrong moment to that club. Yes, Inter is better than Lazio, don't get me wrong. They're playing the Champions League, etc. But you're taking a huge risk for 2 million euros more a year. I mean, that's it. Don't tell me that it's because Marotta promised you a huge transfer market, because it's not going to be. We know it. It's simply money. So, yeah, that's where my disappointment grows, because it's not that Juventus called me or Real Madrid called me and, we're going to sign Cristiano Ronaldo and things like that. No. We know that why Antonio Conte left Inter? Because he wanted to buy a couple of players and they said, hey, we're going to sell a couple of key players, so just relax. And he left. So, again, that's the thing that drives me crazy. You're going to a team that's going to sell key players.
Yeah, but so what? There's still the champions of Italy. Even if you take Lukaku and Hakimi out of that team, it's still a far better squad than what he's got now. It's still an upgrade. It's still a big opportunity for him. Let's not kid ourselves that this is anything else other than a step up in his career.
Yes, definitely. Again, on Wednesday, you should have said, hey, I'm looking for a step forward in my career. I'm sorry. And I would have respected him a lot. Doing it the day afterwards, I don't think it's, in particular, if it's true what Lotito said. We went to the conference to sign the contract. I signed the contract, and Inzaghi never showed up. So.
Well, look, I'm not really on the same page. I wouldn't go as far as calling him a traitor or a slave to modern football or anything like that. I disagree with the notion that it's down to money. I think that the club has had a responsibility to essentially be able to convince him that there is more work yet to be done, and there's an ambitious project here at Lazio that keeps progressing. And I think that there has been that momentum over his 5 years at the club. I think one season to the next, there's always been a next objective, a next goal in mind until this year. I don't feel like this season has ended with any particular idea of kind of what comes next. And I feel like in that position, I can understand how it's ended up happening. I don't like the manner, I've said that, I don't like the manner it's ended up happening in, but when it comes down to it, I think my memory of Inzaghi is going to be a very, very positive one for everything that he's done for this club, not only in 5 years as a coach, taking us back to the Champions League, winning 3 trophies, and really creating an incredible group, getting a record points total. He's done an incredible job in the 5 years he's been here. He's won a Scudetto as a player here. He's won the Primavera Scudetto with the youth team. So that, for me, is his legacy. This is going to be part of that. Of course it is. But for me, in the same sense that For example, people didn't like the fact that Nesta said goodbye. We've talked about that before, and I think that history will remember his achievements rather than this. I can understand why people think of it as a betrayal right now, but I think looking long term, big picture, Inzaghi deserves to be remembered for everything else he's done, and not for this moment.
We'll see, but Inzaghi needs to be remembered even for the guy that didn't play Pedro Neto, the guy that played Reina instead of Strakosha, the guy that played Marco Parolo central defender, the guy that played Patrick 100th time,
The guy that sold Bastos.
The guy that sold Bastos. There are a lot of negative memories about Inzaghi, and who knows now with Pedro Neto where Lazio would have been. Raul Moro didn't play a minute with Inzaghi.
But let's not rewrite history. I mean, our expectations have been raised as fans because of what he's done.
Yes, but I always say that players go in the pitch and play. So, is it thanks to Inzaghi or is it thanks to Milinkovic Savic, Ciro Immobile, Luis Alberto? I think it's 50-50 or maybe 70-30. Right?
No, I disagree. I think he's done an incredible job of getting the best out of the players at his disposal, especially if you look at the couple of seasons Immobile had come off when he arrived at Lazio. There's no doubt that his relationship with Ciro has helped him become the player he is. Luis Alberto was an absolute shadow of the player that he now is before he came to Lazio and worked under Inzaghi. Milinkovic Savic is a completely different category because he's world class and probably would have been anyway. But he's improved so many players, and this is a thing that people often overlook. It's not just the kind of fringe players who he's made into useful players like Caicedo and your Patricks and Marco Parolos. It's the fact that he's turned the likes of Immobile and Alberto into kind of recognized star players in Serie A. I don't think it's fair to Inzaghi to say that was just done on their own.
No, definitely, it's part of Inzaghi's job. But I think we're gonna have a better idea next year, right? Where we're gonna see Inzaghi results at Inter, and we're gonna see how Lazio players will play without Inzaghi. I think that will be the best response, and will tell us the results of Inzaghi and Lazio player. Even though, Alistair, I have a question for you. Do you think that players like Luis Alberto or Caicedo or maybe Lazzari will ask to leave now that Inzaghi is gone? Do you fear that?
That is a serious concern. I mean, one of the things Inzaghi has been absolutely best at the whole time he's been at the club is the unity and the team spirit he's created in this group. It's not a coincidence that Lazio haven't sold their star players during his time at the club. He's created an atmosphere where people don't want to leave this club because of the group that they've put together. And it obviously completely depends on what happens next and who comes next, and we'll get onto that. But I think a lot of these guys, they are loyal to him. I not this summer for obvious reasons with the finances, but in future I would take a Milinkovic Savic to Inter rumour a lot more seriously than I have done in the last 4 years. Now that Inzaghi's there, for example, I'm not saying I think the whole thing is going to fall apart now and everyone's going to be demanding to leave this summer, but it just changes things. The whole structure at the club has been so consistent for so long, which is such a rare thing in football generally, especially in Italian football. It's so hard to see what's going to happen next now because there's just so much change that's going to happen.
If we know Claudio Lotito, he will never sell a player to Inter anymore, I think. Especially if Inter doesn't double up the price, right? So Milinkovic Savic, I think it's around 200 million euros now for Inter.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, in the last 3 years now, we've lost Stefan de Vrij to Inter for free, who's become one of the best defenders in the league. Well, already was. And now lost our best coach of the modern era to Inter for free as well. It's not the first. We've lost a lot of people to Inter over the years. Candreva, Hernanes. I mean,
you don't think Ballardini was our best coach of the modern era?
Oh god.
I'm surprised.
Can I was just going to suggest before we move on that I read out a few of the comments we've got on what people have said to us on Twitter about this, just before we start talking about the next coach.
Go on.
Because it is interesting. People react differently. Stefano Federici said, "Good luck to him." Brackets sarcastic. "All those who leave Lazio for Inter end up regretting it. Going there after Conte is a very bad idea, also considering they're having to make cutbacks due to the cash flow. I hope he doesn't eat his panettone." Which, in case anyone doesn't realize, means get sacked before Christmas. So that's kind of like what you were saying, I guess.
Absolutely.
Andrena said, "Disappointed to see it end like this. Inzaghi deserves praise for what he's achieved with Lazio, and instead he'll be remembered for the way he left. No idea who could replace him, but Lotito and Tare need to get their act together." Raphael said his departure was as dramatic as his appointment. Good point.
It's true.
Per Nielsen, terrible way to end this adventure. I think the cycle was coming to an end anyway. The club needs changes, but when it's in Lotito and Tare's hands, I'm really worried about next season.
Unfortunately, true as well.
There's a few of these. Dariawan said Tare was the only one who should have been released. He's been horrible for the last 2 or 3 years. Sorry if any of my words are disrespectful. I'm just so pissed off and disappointed. I don't trust Inzaghi nor Lotito in this case, but they both have their own agenda. Darren L said, there's a lot of these, by the way, so sorry if we didn't get around to yours, but just picked out a few. Darren L said, "I don't know what to feel at the moment. Inzaghi's given so much, but it's the way he's leaving that hurts the most. Any attainable coach will be a step down from Inzaghi. I get why he would want Mihailovic, but he hasn't lasted more than 2 years at a club." And I think that's a nice one to kind of move on to the next one with, because I think it sums up how we're all feeling, and it gets us talking about what comes next.
Yeah, because the most concerning part of this, Alistair, and always has been, is not letting Inzaghi go, is the replacement, because we all fear that it won't be the same level. Inzaghi is a good manager. I think there are better options, but I don't think Lotito would sign them, right? I mean, rumors are Mazzarri. I mean, I feel totally shocked if Mazzarri comes to Lazio. You know, he failed at Torino. I mean, in the last 10 years, I think Mazzarri has, I don't know, have been terrible. And so I cannot see him be Lazio's manager next year.
I hope to God not. I mean, that cannot be the answer. That nobody can surely think that that's the next logical step here. No, I mean, we've had all sorts of names already appearing, and that people have sent us as well. I think we're both in agreement that we don't want to see Mazzarri. I would be surprised as well, very surprised. But there are so many surprises at the moment. Should I read out a few names?
Yeah, go on.
Tell me what you think. Okay. Sinisa Mihailovic.
Yeah, probably it's the best solution, but it doesn't. It's, I think a step down compared to Simone Inzaghi. And he failed with Inter and Milan, right? So, I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Very different style of coach as well.
Yep.
Plays generally 4-3-3, very attack-minded football. The one thing that's a big change from Inzaghi would be that he does like youth players. He does like playing a lot of young guys. Don't forget, he's the one who gave Donnarumma his debut at Milan when he was 16. So in that respect, it would appease a lot of the fans who've been calling out for more youth players to be tested. But yeah, I mean, his only big Serie A job has been Milan so far, and it wasn't a huge success, I guess. But yeah, it feels to me like it's kind of like an obvious next step in a way, but it would require a lot of changes. I'm not totally convinced about the idea.
And I think he hasn't got a good relationship with Lotito or Tare or both of them, right? So this is when his name pop up. I was a little bit surprised because I don't think he has a very good relationship with them.
He does tick the box of, Scudetto winning Lazio player, though.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a few of those popping up. Sergio Conceição being another one. Obviously, last time we spoke, there was that report that he was just about to sign for Napoli, which never happened. This one just seems quite unlikely, though, doesn't it, given the difficulties?
I would love Conceição. He plays great football. He's a Lazio supporter and so on. But I think he's close to re-sign with Porto. So that's the biggest problem. And, rumors were that he didn't accept the offer of Napoli because he wants to play in Champions League. So he cannot accept the offer from Lazio. But, it would be interesting. Something completely different. It could be interesting. And let's not forget that when he was Porto's coach, he beat Roma in Champions League. So that's another point for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it was up to me to choose one of the many names that I've seen being linked to the job, I'd probably go for his one. It's obviously a bit of a gamble in the sense that he's not been tested in Serie A so far, but he does feel like a coach who would be quite well suited to Serie A, and obviously spent a long time here as a player as well. So he's not coming in completely new. So yeah, I mean, quite defensive football. Very different to Mihailovic, I think. It'd be not necessarily the most amazing stuff to watch from what I've read and seen about Porto. But effective, yeah. And I think that would be the kind of appointment for me that would energize the kind of project again as well.
Yep. It would be interesting, honestly. It would be one of my top choices, but I see it hard to happen, right?
Yeah, I think it's a long shot. Another one that's a long shot because of the timing is Ivan Juric. He's left Verona today, but he's very much expected to be signing with Torino. I've actually, have to admit, I've got Sky Sports news on in the background while we're doing this because the last 2 days have been so crazy that I'm convinced that Lazio are going to make an appointment while we're recording. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the timing's just not going to work out with this one. But for me, it would have been almost perfect because 2 great seasons at Verona. He knows how to work on a budget. He knows how to get the best out of the players. Plays nice football. Plays 3-5-2. The transition would be relatively simple in that respect, and he wouldn't be costing an awful lot as well. And yeah, it would have made a lot of sense to me, but it looks like the timing's not going to work.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he's signing for Torino. I think he should aim for a bigger club, and probably he should have waited a little bit because with all this bench moving and the manager leaving, he could have had the chance. And I thought, as you said, he could have been very interesting if he moved to, coming to Lazio. I think Verona played great football. Let's not forget, they sold him a lot of players in the last 2 years, and he always did better. They sold him Kumbulla. Everybody was saying, Kumbulla, best defender, and Verona had the best defense compared to last year. So, this is another very important point to mention.
Yeah, absolutely. He did an amazing job this year because they sold so many. They sold Rahmani, they sold Amrabat, they sold Verre, they sold Pessina, returned from loans, and Kumbulla, like you said. And they had so many loan players, and I think that already makes things hard because you're trying to get the same amount of commitment and dedication from loan players as full-time players is not easy. And really impressive. Again, brings out all these gems like Lavati, like Tameze, Di Marco, getting great performances out of guys who've looked fairly limited before then. But I said earlier on Twitter, it's like, given everything that's happened over the last 2 days, part of me, the optimistic part of me, is thinking Lotito has picked up the phone at 6 o'clock this morning and he is hammering on Ivan Juric's door saying, change your mind until it's signed. It's signed, it's still possible.
Well, Inzaghi still didn't sign, so maybe he's hijacking his train and, locking him. I don't know if you have it in the list. Another manager I would love is Italiano. He
Who's the
did
next one?
unbelievable with Spezia. And I think, again, it's a risk because it's a relatively new manager. He never managed in a big city like Rome, but he played terrific football with a very weak team. He was able to dominate Milan, played great football against big team. Um, he plays even with a 3-5-2. So, it ticks all the boxes. And I'm honestly surprised that his name didn't hasn't been ever linked with Lazio in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, you've seen Italiano being linked with quite a few different jobs, but not really Lazio so far. Yeah, I agree. I think he's, again, one of the best coaches in Serie A this season, considering everyone said Spezia were going down this time last year. And the squad he had was essentially a bunch of nobodies, and now people have a lot of respect for the players that they've got there. Yeah, I think, like you say, it's a bit more of a gamble in the sense that he's only had the 1 year. He's worked his way up through the leagues, and he's had a great debut season in Serie A. But for me, I think maybe a little bit too soon. I feel like there's only because I feel like there is so much work to do at Lazio next season and this summer, and I feel like it's a big job for a guy who's only kind of had one season in Serie A with quite a small club to walk into this situation at Lazio. Maybe he would be up to it, but I don't know. The cautious part of me thinks I want someone with a bit more experience.
Yes, I know. I mean, I think our dream would be to have a more experienced manager, a manager who had success. I don't know, Maurizio Sarri, for example. He hardly has been linked to Lazio because I think his salary is quite over the budget for Lazio. But, I think to please the fans, that could be the right name.
That'd be amazing. It really would. But can you see it happening? I mean, he's gonna require big wages. He's used to Juventus and Chelsea wages now.
Yes, it's even true though that this would be the second year he's not managing, and I think at the moment he has no chance because all the biggest team have find the replacement. So if you want to stay another year at home, then okay. Otherwise, he could accept Lazio. Hey, we just mentioned, and Di Marzio said that Lazio has been in touch with Italiano.
Okay. Well, Di Marzio's not got anything wrong the last couple of days, has he?
I think he was one of the few who didn't mention Caicedo. Caicedo. Sergio Conceição to Napoli. So
you've got Caicedo on the brain. Every single time you get a name wrong, you always say Caicedo instead. It's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. The only other name, but there are loads more, but the only other one that people have flagged up to us is quite an interesting one, which is Dejan Stankovic.
Yep.
Who is currently at Red Star. Another ex-Lazio player, obviously.
Really?
I have to say, I don't know an awful lot about Serbian football, and I haven't really been paying much attention to how he's getting on. But from everything we've been told, he's been doing a good job. So,
I think he had a record season. I think he won the league, and I don't remember if he had record of points achieved or he never lost at home, something like that. But yeah, he had a terrific season. So, but again, this is the first season as manager, if I'm not wrong, in a very different league, very low league. It's true that he put a fight for AC Milan in a Europe League, right? So, but again, it would be probably a higher jump for him. Even though, as you said, he's a former Lazio player, he won the Scudetto, he knows very well Rome. So, yeah, it would be interesting, I would say. But I don't know. The point, Alistair, is I fear Mr. X will come out in a couple of days and from nowhere he's going to be the new Lazio manager, right? A sort of Petkovic 2.0.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You don't know what direction they're going to go in here. If they're going to go for the big name, if they're going to go for the kind of reliable Serie A option, if they're going to go for the wild card foreign option, or I just opened his Wikipedia page here, which is the kind of brilliant research you can expect from us. Yeah, two league titles there because he was appointed midway through last season.
Oh, okay.
And also the cup this year as well as the league. Apparently, in 64 games, he's won 51 and scored 172 goals. That is pretty impressive. 80% win ratio. But yeah, like you say, a big step up regardless. So I think that's one that if it does come about, we'll have to find someone who knows more about him than we do as manager.
Yeah. Alistair, my dog is requesting me, so I think we can wrap it up here. We talk about future option for Lazio. We are sure that till the next podcast, another couple of names will pop up, and we will update you everywhere if Lazio finally find the new Lazio manager. We're going to come back with an extra podcast, right, Alistair?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
who knows who it'll be or when it'll be, but
yeah, obviously the season review will be postponed. Obviously, I think there are more important things now. See who's Lazio manager will be, but we'll do that as well in the next weeks or so after the new manager will be appointed. So start thinking about player of the year, signing of the year, worst player of the year, obviously, so that you're ready, focus, and know what you want to vote. But yeah, I think the next one will be a special on the new Lazio manager, hoping it doesn't take ages because transfer market is starting very soon. So Lazio has to be ready, right, Alistair?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think I get the impression we're going to have a lot to talk about this summer.
Revolution, right?
Which is a non for a while. Yeah. Year zero all over again.
Yeah, definitely. I can see it happening, honestly. And I don't know if I'm concerned or more exciting about that. Because, you start from scratch, maybe you get some interesting players, or maybe Raul Moro start playing and show everybody that he's a talent. So who knows, Alistair? It's going to be an exciting summer. Thanks again for joining me, Alistair. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the podcast. Remember, we are on Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, and on YouTube. And if you want to support the podcast, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Thank you, Alistair. Goodbye.
Cheers.